Right. Welcome, everybody, to our work session. We were originally scheduled for 5:45. We're about 15 minutes late, so I apologize to everybody. We just got out of executive session. But we have two items on the work session agenda tonight. First is we're meeting with our traffic safety committee. To have a conversation about how we move forward. And we're also going to be meeting later, and I'm going to suggest maybe we move that to after the council meeting on the youth advisory committee that we're contemplating setting up. So with that, we'll go ahead and kick off. And I think the best thing to do is maybe a round of introductions, because I don't know if we all know each other. And for the public listening, this is a joint meeting of our traffic safety committee and our city council. So why don't we just go around the room? Do you want to go first?
Sure. Well, my name is Dorian Liebel. I've lived in Sherwood about 7 years and been on the traffic safety committee 3-ish years now. I work for Washington County as well and manage traffic signals for the county.
Awesome.
I'm Dan Stanky. I'm on the city council.
Doug Scott, city council.
Young, city council.
Keith Mays, City Council.
Radio. Jason Wertz, I'm the current chair of the traffic safety committee.
Hi, Lisa Patterson, traffic safety committee member. Tiffany Yon, vice chair of the traffic safety committee.
Tony Bevel, traffic safety committee.
Renee Browse, City Council.
Richard Minchie, I'm the police board liaison to the traffic safety committee.
Sebastian Tapia, staff. And Ty Hamlin, police chief.
Lawrence O'Keefe, police advisory board and traffic safety committee liaison.
I think.
Joy Chang, city planner, Safe Routes to School.
Awesome.
Dan O'Loughlin, your patrol captain and staff on traffic safety committee.
Taylor Giles, city council.
Craig Sheldon, staff.
And y'all know me, I'm Tim Rosner and Ware. So hey, again, welcome everybody. We're
Everyone knows you necessarily.
most people do. I think I'm personally really excited about having this meeting. We created the traffic committee maybe 3 years ago, I believe, 3 or 4 years ago. 2020, almost 5 years. Wow. And I think with this meeting is probably long overdue in making sure that from my point of view, I want to make sure that the traffic safety committee feels empowered to do their work. And the end result, I think we all agree with, is making our streets safe for pedestrians and for traffic. And so, talking about how we do that, whether short-term tools, long-term tools, how do we address problems moving forward, and how does the committee integrate with council's goal setting and visioning, but more importantly, integrate with our operations. So what we're doing. Did I miss anything there, Craig?
No, I think you're right on.
So I think kind of a loosey-goosey format for tonight. Did this go out to everybody? Council. This went out to council. Okay. So just as some food for thought as we dive into this, I'd like to kind of go around the room with traffic committee, get your thoughts, how things are going, and what you see we could do moving forward. But obviously, the goal is safety in our community. The council has been a little bit focused on safety around our schools recently. I see the challenges on Sunset at what's that road, Turnbull, that comes down the hill. We've had issues in front of Archer Glen and in front of the old middle school, new Oxview Elementary. Make sure that we're addressing that. We've had issues outside our school zones. Of course, we had that horrific fatalities on Mini Road. So there's a lot of things going on that need to be addressed in our community. The question is, how do we do that? Obviously, some of the solutions we talk about, as you guys know, cost a lot of money, right? But there's also things that we can do in the short term, like enhanced patrols or putting the speed trailer out. Do we invest in new radar lights in front of the school zones? Those types of things. So that's kind of my thoughts leading into this. Or one more thing, I think, but just to categorize it, how I think about it, there are very short-term tactical recommendations the traffic safety committee could be making. So that might, like I just mentioned, might be putting the speed trailer out there, so people are at least aware of how fast they're going. There are other tools and options we can explore together in terms of additional resources, like they make photo radar signs that you can just throw up on a pole, put out in the community if we want to do that. And there's a whole litany of things that we could be doing around that. There are more, there's things that cost money on the other end of the spectrum. Like for instance, the redoing that intersection at Sunset Trimble requires a lot of money. So we have Joy, who's worked very hard with Safe Routes to School. And we got some seed money from Washington County to try to bring that money together to do that project. And I get the feeling there's a third category. I don't get the feeling there's a third category, which is more advisory that I see. Like, for instance, there's about how many different ways are there to put a crosswalk in? I mean, we could have flashing lights, we could put red, green, yellow lights. We can just have painted lines and kids fend for themselves. There's so many ways we can do that. And I think that there's a place for this committee to have a voice in what those our standards are as a community around those types of things. And what that type of stuff looks like. So working with the planning commission, as we adopt new code and stuff like that related to traffic safety. So those are the three categories that I think about. Greg, we talked about a little bit. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, I think there's also an opportunity for some goals and objectives around traffic calming and what that policy looks like for the city as we move forward. Breaking that on down to the speeding enforcement, the signage, as the mayor said, safety improvements. I think there's been a little bit of confusion over $100,000, what that money gets spent on, right? For the traffic calming. That number could change as the years down the road come with the ADA transition plan that we're putting together. So we might not have that amount of money, but really that $100,000, we budget out of the operation funds. It goes into a reserve fund, capital reserve, that's where some of the improvements have happened over the years. One year we spent over 100,000 on Langer Farms roundabout. Other years we have not spent that amount of money. And where we did not get the Safe Routes to School, there's an opportunity if we want to move forward with the money that's been put away for 4 or 5 years to do the improvements on Sunset and Kimbrell. We're within about $5,000 or $6,000 in that savings. And what that money does, it stays in that reserve fund and it goes to the next road projects that we do of putting crosswalks, ADA transitions. So it's being spent on roads. That's how that 100,000 number come about. So when the traffic safety requests stop signs, they request studies. That's where that money is being spent on. So it's not like it just doesn't go away. It's being spent on roadways somewhere along the line. So,
Yeah, and I think there's been some confusion over the years because when we originally set up that 100,000, it was meant as a bucket for the traffic safety committee. And I think we need to work on refining what that policy is and what that looks like. So everybody understands what the budget looks like for some of those stopgap measures.
and I would just add on top of that, we only have a couple engineers in our engineering department. Not that we're not trying to be safe out there. But we budget about 76 to 78 hours just to do the meetings and to look into stuff. And there's probably another 76 to 78 hours with some traffic studies. And then we have the law enforcement that talking with the chief earlier today. That number is probably about 450 to 500 hours a year that we're actually from traffic complaints that the PD is actually working through. So, we have a quarter to a half of FTE just already going into our traffic safety program now. It might not be seen out there, but that's the numbers we can come up with. And I'm sure some years we probably go over the 76 to 78 hours, but on other years we might not, right? So what we done. And then we just eat the cost through the traffic, through that 100,000 for our operation group to actually go out and put signs and that kind of stuff up. So that's really what I think it would be nice to have some policy as we grow. And there's a transportation master plan that's kicking off to have the traffic safety committee work with staff on that as we have information as we move forward. So I think there's some things that we can actually do to improve what we've been doing already.
With the traffic safety committee, are they advising or something, as we start getting into master planning in Sherwood West, and if we want a walkable zone, or, I know this is very car pedestrian heavy. I'm just saying, are there other modalities where we say, hey, we want some recommendations on how to make this safe for,
Well, I think
Bike
that's
center.
part of the policy setting, but I think what I'd like to do now is, I mean. Craig and I have been talking this whole time so far, and part of bringing you guys in was we want to hear from you. And feel free to tell us we're full of it, we're missing stuff, that why aren't you focused on this? What's working, what's not working, that's the purpose of this conversation, and start with the chair.
Sure. I didn't really know what all the topics of conversation were gonna be tonight, but I did come with some notes. I think that, I think this is good, and I'm thankful that, you know, you set this up, and it's been almost 5 years. It was just after the first of the year that I think we started to meet right when COVID hit.
timing is great.
Yeah, so I think it's good, you know, a good time frame to just take a look at it, and whether things change or not, you know, it just seems like a good time to revisit and make sure that what was envisioned for our committee, the purpose that we were set out to serve, that, you know, look back on that and have we served that purpose? And should it continue to be that way, or should it morph as we continue to grow and learn? So I think this is good, and I just want to say thanks for setting this up. I think that we've seen a lot of issues come forward to us. The majority of those issues revolve around either speed complaints, parking issues, or pedestrian safety. And a lot of these issues can be resolved and have been resolved, or I guess apparently resolved, with increased enforcement, small things like adding some signage here and there, or, you know, making no parking areas. But some of them do require bigger expenditures, or require a bigger picture look at something that is not just that simple quick fix. And I think that's where, you know, recently as things come, people come with issues, you know, I think that's kind of what stirred this, is like, what do we do with that? With the current, you know, setup of the group, how do we make sure that people who bring their issues to us, that they feel like they've been heard to the maximum extent that they could? And I think we saw an example of that where, you know, they did what they could with us, and then they went to you guys. And maybe that's the way it should be. But I think that just kind of raised the question, like, well, let's revisit you know, what is our purpose, and how should we be functioning, and how do we work best with staff with the limited resources they have? And so I don't really know that I have any solutions tonight that I wanted to pitch. I just wanted to say thanks for taking the time to chat. And I'm actually more interested to hear your guys' feedback on the last, I mean, if you've recognized anything over the last 5 years, or if we just kind of been this side thing that functions and is what it is. But
Yeah, go ahead.
I can probably say one thing is, I don't know, because honestly, the work that you guys are doing is not filtering up to council, and maybe that's our fault for not maybe reviewing the minutes or getting quarterly reports, or somehow I would like to know what traffic safety committee is working on. And
I think that dovetails into something I've been vocal about, which is we set this up originally as a subcommittee of the police advisory board, and I don't have any reason to think that was the wrong decision at the time, but to me, I'm wondering more and more, would it be a better setup to have the traffic advisory committee report directly to council, like all our other boards and commissions do, and then there would be maybe more of a direct conduit of information.
we definitely.
They could also, you guys could also vote on things, pass recommendations that would then come directly to council, just like what happens from our other boards and committees. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why it makes sense, if it does, that it goes through police advisory board.
I don't think it makes sense anymore.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't think so either, but I may not know, so I'd like the people on the board to tell me what's the benefit of that intermediary of the police advisory board.
Well,
Chief.
I'll just give you my quick perspective. I'm one of the newer members. I've been on about 1.5 years on the traffic safety committee. And I don't have any kind of a background that would make me an expert in traffic safety or police or anything of those lines. So I'm very much looking at it as a citizen. And I was very surprised initially to see the involvement of the police with all the traffic complaints. Every time a complaint comes and we're going to sit down and meet on it, the captain and our patrol officer show up and basically talk to us about, we parked our car around the corner and we watched this many people violate this thing, and we watched this many people pass through this way, and there's all this analysis that happens at the front end of it. So it's very much a police heavy process to even bring the complaint to the board for us to even talk about. So police involvement is important. Whether it needs to be a subcommittee or not, that, I don't know. I'm not qualified to say that either, but obviously the police involvement is such a big part of it. There's also the city component. The engineer sits with us, Joy from the planning perspective and with the safe routes to school perspective on it as well. And then not to mention a lot of our board members, you work with traffic lights for Washington County, you're an engineer, and it's like there's a lot of people who are very knowledgeable in that room. So there's a lot of great knowledge being captured. It needs the police presence, but it doesn't necessarily need to be nestled under it. But there's more police involvement than what I was initially expecting walking into it.
Yeah, just to be clear, all that can happen without, if the board reported directly to council, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
To me, my question is more around like, what's the reason, if there is still one, that we would want to keep it under the police advisory board? Ty, do you have any
I don't
thoughts
think
on
there's a
this?
good argument to keep it there necessarily. When this first came to light, it was driven by just all the complaints, because our number one complaint has been traffic, distracted driving, stop signs and speeding. And so it was kind of give an opportunity to have a dedicated group of people to address those and to have a platform for people to come and be heard. And so this thing is definitely grown, and it's, I think, for the community, standalone is great. To Richard's point, I mean, yeah, we got to be involved. I mean, I don't see any reason anything needs to change. We would still have a dedicated personnel to those things. It goes back to, and I think the thing that we kicked around is just, unfortunately, it's just going to be more work for everybody all the way around. And so what's that going to look like in the sense of making sure we can cover the things that need to be done?
Why would it be more work? You're doing it now.
If there's more involvement, if we are expanding the scope, the recommendations here, and all of a sudden we're involved in planning and the new growth here, I mean, because this is pretty scoped in its area. I mean, we're just looking at traffic safety concerns at this point. The proposal and the talking points tonight expands that. So overall,
Sorry, I was just focused on that one.
yeah, no, I mean, obviously, if you go back to what we've been doing and really the groundwork that needs to be done, it's still at the basic levels of the just livability issues of the safety and the speed. And long story short, yeah, it needs to stand alone. We wouldn't change the way we operate. I mean, we continue to do what we do, and just, I think obviously it's going to be another ask of council, because I think a liaison is important to be there, to hear it, to bring it back. But I think it would be beneficial all the way around.
Yeah, and for those of you that are on the traffic safety committee that don't know this, it's not clear. All the boards and commissions that report directly to council, there is a council liaison that goes to those meetings. So that's our conduit. And that works pretty good. For instance, Stan goes to planning commission. Renee is on our senior and wiser members of the committee. But so we have that, there's a more of a path, and we also do some, we invited you guys this year, but we do some regular meetings, at least 2 throughout the year, to make sure we're aligned in terms of council goals, with the mission of the committee. So I think that would help a lot. But I want to make sure all the committee members have a chance. Is there anyone else that has some thoughts? Do you have a thought or?
Go ahead.
I was just gonna mention that I think that, it's been really nice, because of the, a lot of the concerns that we get are addressed in either a master plan or a CIP list. It's been really helpful to have the staff there and to have more insight and, more, connection to that or, at least input or even if it's just being informed, that would be helpful for the.
My only, main concern is that, things move so slow. And, move so slow.
We all share.
Government at its best.
But for what it's worth, at the local level, at the city level, we are lightning fast. Compared
Compared to Salem.
to any
Remember,
level
it
above
took-
us, be it the
It
county
took
or the
12
state
years
or-
to build a half a mile bridge with the federal government involved.
Well, so one of the things that I would,
I want to make sure everybody from the committee gets. Yeah.
Larry O'Keefe, I'm a newer member of the Traffic Safety Committee. I've been on the Police Advisory Board for almost 2 years now, I guess. And it's been very advantageous for me to hear the police side of stuff as we're in these meetings. And then hear the traffic report and you kind of get for me, I kind of get a bigger picture of the goings on in the city, but I would totally agree with Richard that the Traffic Safety Committee, especially being consistent with your other Parks Committee or your other committees across, they're all run the same way. I mean, it just makes sense for this to be a standalone committee.
Is there any reason why there couldn't still be a liaison from PAB to traffic safety? Could we have that when we set it up?
All are public meetings, so anybody can attend anything, and having someone from police advisory attending. They wouldn't have a vote or blah, 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 but
They don't have a vote, I don't
I think it would be valuable.
Do you
Yeah.
vote?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, because I make up for
okay.
Those are things we can work out, but Taylor, I'm sorry, I put you off.
no, it's fine. My only comment was, as a city councilor, I care, okay, here are the complaints we're getting, here are them bucketed into the different kinds of things. They're going down or they're going up, and here are the 3 that we need help on, and these are the priorities we have them on. And I feel like that should be a direct report, and if nothing else, those other ones of, here's how we've resolved these other types of complaints. That feels like a PR/communication out to the public, because one of the things that I keep hearing is people saying, hey, I don't understand why blank, and they make a big yell about it. And then I think a lot of them have an experience like you where they go, oh, I didn't understand that was, hey, a county road, or that was in process, or this, and and it's just that it's slow, right? They're expecting it to be solved tomorrow, and it may not be. And the solution tomorrow might be, we put a police car out there and stuff like that.
And many times it's just a communication.
Right, but and so part of me just says, how do we get those KPIs or whatever we call them for the bucketed tickets, and they're going up and down, and then here are the 3 things council needs to know that we need your help on, because we don't, we've hit our ability to resolve them, because I kind of want to maintain the ability for you guys to resolve the things you can resolve with signage and all these other different things, and then just bump up the things that are problems, because maybe we can help, and frankly, maybe we can't, but.
To Tony's comment about the bureaucracy and the slow moving, by removing that layer, hopefully we'll make things go a little bit faster too.
That's an outstanding point.
Yeah.
Is a frame of reference, from idea to getting the funding approved, the whole layer cake funding approved for a new pedestrian bridge was about 5 years. And a lot of different sources. And I can't tell you how many people from around the regions ask, how did you do that so fast? Just, but it's, it's part of the challenge. For the bigger projects like that, on Sunset and Trimble, we're doing the same thing. We're building that layer cake of funding. We got a grant from the county. We're applying to Safe Routes to School. Hopefully that'll all come out, and we have a plan B. you know, if we don't get that grant, but we also, the monies that Craig was talking about that can shift around, those are allocated for the other projects, so that means those projects get delayed, so we're always looking for other people's money. On the Edie Road, we have a complete street project for that road to increase safety on that road. We have 16 million coming from the county to do that project, but now we have to go fight with the county on whose mistip project comes first, because there's about 12 projects around the region. So now we're in the battle of who gets to do their project first. So it's just the nature of the beast, but we do work really hard to try to make that go as fast as possible, but we all share your concern. I like the idea of having this report to council as well, for the simple fact that pedestrian traffic safety is one of the #1 concerns in our city, so it deserves our full attention. You know, as we're moving forward, and council should be fully aware of what you guys are working on, and so we can help in any way possible. So having that layer of separation, I don't think is. And I think Doug said it, we didn't know it was a bad idea in the beginning, but you know, we learn and we correct and.
Well,
move forward.
I think it was a
Yeah.
great idea because we didn't know what we were getting into. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just.
It was an experiment.
Yeah,
It's an experiment.
We wanted the community to know that their concerns were being listened to and didn't have to, if someone was skeptical of city staff or be it the police officer, planning, engineering, that community members were listening to it. And it makes a big difference. And yes, there are limited resources. Yes, you know, I think you guys have done a lot of great work and made a big difference in the 5 years. Yeah, I think I agree. The next logical step is make it standalone. Consider putting a few more things on your plate to give council feedback on some policy or design related issues like the type of crosswalks standards or traffic calming standards we should have in our toolkit is smart. And then guess what? We get to leverage you guys, I think, more when we put forth projects and say, well, this came through as an elevated issue from the traffic calming committee that originated from citizen concerns, or maybe from within the traffic calming committee. That's great. And maybe we might even, if we have to go to another agency, because it's not a city road, it's a county road or it's a state road, we add your voices in advocacy at those levels.
Yeah, we can go to the county commissioners and testify together. We can go to Salem and testify together on state law issues that we
You
see.
can do it in person, you can do it virtually, or you just put your name to a letter.
Or you can do a letter.
That's the way of doing it. But when you add momentum from a community, from a city to another agency, it helps.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you heard when we had our meeting with the chairs of the boards, I think last meeting or the meeting before, where the planning commission chair said that how much value the traffic safety committee's been to the planning commission, because all of these concerns and complaints used to come to the planning commission. And I don't know how much people know, the planning commission probably has more work than city council at times. I mean, and so to have some of the, I don't even want to say smaller, but the traffic and the safety and those kind of concerns being handled now by the traffic safety committee has freed them time up to concentrate more on the planning commission stuff. So they just gave you guys a lot of kudos about
Yeah, Gene was very
helping with that. Yeah.
I think too, one of the, when we had all the council and then the chairs from all the different boards and commissions and committees in here, we did have a conversation about how do we work better together, because traffic safety may have input on some work planning commissions doing, like standards for crosswalks and stuff like that. But that's not the only case where we're seeing parks and planning commission, the cultural arts and various other groups. So we are starting to have conversations about how do we facilitate that. you know, without creating a huge burden for staff and. But make sure those conversations are occurring, or at least we know what the triggers are to say, hey, maybe someone from traffic safety committee needs to go be involved on this committee or something for a project.
We're fortunate that we have a very engaged community. We have lots of volunteers on our various boards and commissions that are very talented individuals. And all of the energies of all of those volunteers help the city council and the city as a whole just be that much better. So.
The other thing, and if there's more comments or thoughts, you know, feel free to lean in on this stuff. The one thing I wanted to get thoughts on is, in the last couple sessions in Salem, legislative sessions, the League of Oregon Cities advocated to increase cities' authorities to install radar speed cameras and radar stoplight cameras, the speed cameras, pretty much anywhere we want in the city now. So that is definitely something I'd like the committee to take a look at and say, are there opportunities?
This will fall into our council goals.
It potentially falls into our council goals,
If that's
but
what we want to add.
yeah, but we have new tools available to us. We have tools like, we can now reduce speed limits in residential areas to 20 miles an hour. Do we want to do that? You know, I'd love to hear from that committee or this committee or the traffic safety committee. Their thoughts on that, especially as we go into goal setting in January. Because those are all, I think, valuable things that we can be looking at as a community. So, and as new tools become available, you want to make sure you're aware of them so you can put them in your arsenal.
Are those speed cameras at all, would they be portable at all to where you could take one, put it up for 3 months, move it to a different area?
You can do portable ones. In fact, they just fixed the law because there was a loophole in the law that said a portable one had to have a police officer next to it. They got that fixed in this last session. So yeah, you can have a portable one. They have cameras that can just be put on a sign, an existing pole. There are some challenges amongst this because, you know, our vendor Redflex might say we don't want to put a camera there because it may not be profitable for them.
You're talking about ones that actually give out tickets versus
Yes,
just the
well,
ones
yeah,
that.
actually give out tickets. For context, when we put the speed cameras in at Sunset, at that northbound intersection, I mean, the first month they were in when no one knew about them, it just skyrocketed. But then the behavior changed and they went down about 60%. So the goal is changing behavior, not raising money. But photo radar speed enforcement at I'm just pitching right now, not making a judgment, but we'd love to have you look at it. It's in front of our schools would be great because it changes behavior. You know,
I think all this conversation is good. I am a strong believer that traffic safety is multifaceted and it involves more than just cars.
Yep.
And our focus has been pretty narrow, I think, at this point. And I welcome the ideas of being able to be involved and help out in more ways, because I think that more well-rounded approach to traffic safety is more effective than focusing on only one thing or a small area. Obviously coupled with being mindful of staff time and resources that are available and council's time as well. I understand, appreciate the concerns there as well, but I appreciate all the comments and feedback, and if that's kind of the direction that things go, even if it's just a little bit that way, I think it'd be a good thing.
what do you guys think about changing the name to the traffic and pedestrian safety?
Traffic and pedestrian?
Yes, because to your point, it's more than just cars.
Yeah, maybe some thought into that,
That'd be a
because
task that let this, if they want to suggest a new name.
Yeah, but
Yeah, because frankly, we're so car centric in our designs for everything for the last 50 years, right? Or 70 years, right? And so as we look at different kinds of design, and this is in partnership with planning, but different kind of designs for Sherwood West, we just got to get smarter on, is there stuff we could build into the code or the planning ahead of time so that we can have safer, I mean, just even having the tree lined dividers between the street and the pedestrians on, you know, part of Sunset there, make it safer for pedestrians, right? And, you know, there's studies that show that narrower streets slow traffic and, you know, little out, like, there's all these little tricks that you can do. And so the point is, do we get educated about those kinds of things as not only a council, but then as a committee to say, hey, these are the recommendations that we think should go in place for Sherwood West or for new streets that are going in or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that's good, and I think we could talk about names. I personally, I think traffic involves, there's pedestrian traffic, there's bicycle traffic, there's vehicle traffic.
Covers
So
it all.
it's but if there's a perception on that just means vehicle, then I'm sure we could come up with something that helps people understand.
Because if you do traffic and pedestrian, then people are gonna say, well,
What about
about
bikes?
bicycles, what about scooters, what about, so is it a mobility, is it a?
We could brainstorm that.
Yeah.
I think it's important for the public to know this is what you're doing. Because we were just having a conversation about, you know, we have all these trails in the cities and we don't allow, we don't have to get into the legal definitions, motorized vehicles. Well, what does that mean? And does that mean a e-bike going 35 mile an hour down one of those back trails is okay? I mean, there's a lot of things that we can be looking at.
Yeah, Mayor, I was just gonna say, I think you guys touched on a great point with planning and engineering, because I don't think that necessarily when people think about that, they just think it's heavy enforcement, and we just can't be there everywhere. And you're spot on in the fact that we need to look at other creative ways to educate, either through patterns or signage or whatever it is, because although enforcement is a great component, it just can't be the end be all, so to speak, that I think people expect of us.
Well, and the other huge benefit of photo radar enforcement is you don't have to have an officer at that intersection all the time. So that officer can be out doing more proactive policing as opposed to reactive policing.
Since you brought that up, the one thing I always hammer about this, we've had our photo red light system since 2010, I believe. And year after year, it is 90% of transient populations not within our zip code, not within our city, that we were dealing with enforcement. So, you know, it's not always necessarily those that live here that we're having to educate and enforce, and that's just going to continue. I know Sunset's been a big problem for us. And
I suspect if we put those in front of schools, that number would skew much more heavily towards people.
it would, and that's a totally different demographic for that enforcement, but just overall traffic within the city and where we're going as we see, you know, the next 3 to 5 to 10 years and what that's gonna look like, so.
You know, often teenagers do tickets.
That's not
So
necessarily.
this is a true
No.
story. I had a meeting, my day job, I had a meeting with the head of maps for Google. With another group of people, and I specifically asked, can you create a tool for cities so we can take roads out of your recommendation number? He said no. Try.
Because, yeah, you just mentioned Sunset, and I know there's a sign that says no trucks through trucks or something. But it seems Sunset has become a main corridor since all that, Walton Sherwood, Roy Rogers construction's been going on. Everyone's choosing to go through Sunset.
One of the technologies that's out there, and that could be another aspect of this, exploring new technologies, is they have license plate readers now where you could potentially, and I know Keith has talked about this for years, you could have one end of Sunset, one at the other, and you could track those vehicles and know which ones are just going through and which ones are not. It might not be something you can write a ticket to, but you could give that company a call, say, you knock it off, right? You know, so eventually, yeah.
Ideally, some sort of more automated, cheaper method of communication than a phone call.
Well, yeah. But the point is, there's all kinds of technology out there too that we can potentially deploy.
Yeah, I just feel like Sunset's an easier path right now. You throw speed bumps all up and down it, everybody's going back to 12th and Sherwood, right? And so there's something in between that where if you know, if it's traffic cameras, if it's license plate, there's something that says, hey, we want the majority of traffic to go 12th and Sherwood and 99 and local traffic slash.
You know, until construction is over, it's premature to.
Yeah, exactly. Because if that does work out to be nicer,
It'll be faster.
then people will just naturally do it, right?
It's faster, it's just like since the construction ended on the other end,
Yeah.
it's way faster to come Roy Rogers all the way to 99. And 99 to Newburgh than it is to go down Elward to Needy. I mean, even before they, blocked up Elward to Needy, it's been faster since that intersection.
Yeah.
And it will be the same when Columbus Shore Road's done.
Okay.
Fingers crossed. No, it will be faster. Whether people learn it is the question.
Yeah. Any other thoughts from the traffic safety committee?
I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Taylor.
Taylor just mentioned speed bumps, and I know you're just using that that's probably the only experience I have bringing to the traffic safety committee. I drove a fire engine for many years. And probably the worst thing that you can do is take a 6-inch piece of blacktop and put it all the way across the road.
Oh, yeah.
But if you do engine friendly or emergency vehicle friendly speed bumps where they're kind of two right in the road, the little Hondas or whatever is speeding down the road, can't straddle those. But fire engines and ambulances and school buses
In my pickup truck.
and pickup truck, yeah. It's just something to tuck away in the back of the head.
No, you're absolutely right, and I do believe we work with fire department and standards.
We don't put in a lot of speed bumps. We
But
put in
it could be
one.
additional stop signs, there's all kinds
Yeah,
of things.
absolutely.
Again, it's all about that irritation factor, right? And if it's more convenient to go the other way, you just naturally will go that way.
Okay, go ahead.
So moving, just so we move forward, I think that gets back to the traffic policy, right? On what we want, definition, goals, the applications we want to use, rating system. But I think as we move forward, if council's good with this, I'll work with the chief. We can get conversations going at the next traffic committee meeting after the first of the year and get something back in front of council early in the winter sometime, February, have further conversations. So
Well, I think there's agreement here to change the structure.
Yeah.
Right. So I think we can move forward with that pretty quickly, but the policy side, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
If the committee report directs to the council, would the size of it expand?
How big is it now?
Right now, there's 7, so it's 5 members plus the 2 PAB liaisons. And there's been a couple times where we barely made quorum, and even one time this last year where we didn't. So
Our boards and committees vary from 7 to
9.
9. Could be 7, but without the 2 PAB liaisons, just, now that it doesn't report to PAB anymore. But if we feel like we need 9. Yeah, it's a chicken and egg, right? Then it's harder to find people.
Yeah.
And end up with more absences, right?
We have-
I don't think people are knocking on the door to join.
yeah, well, we had one PAB liaison for a while, and that's why we were kind of thin during summer, and those were the couple.
We realized we were supposed to have 2.
Yeah. exactly. So those are the couple times where it's like, ooh, when 2 people have an appointment or something that night, all of a sudden, that throws the entire meeting off because we're missing 2, and that just seemed like it's kind of skinny.
Well, if the PAB liaison is advisory and it's just the 7, then your quorum count goes down too. Swap.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so the PAB could still have a liaison without a voting.
I mean,
Yeah,
and my feedback is. Generally speaking, if you serve on planning commission, you don't serve on any other committee. It's normal standing committee. You can attend other ones, and then there's of course the joint meetings stuff. So I would advocate for the traffic safety committee to have no members that are on anything else, but people can be liaisons or attend all the time. They can participate, but they wouldn't be.
Yeah, liaisons where it makes sense. The liaison still has a seat at the table, they can still talk, they just don't vote, right? Versus attending a meeting. Yeah.
that's why I would like the liaison part. Yeah.
If we had 7 traffic safety members and then a liaison each from PAB and council.
So let's work on it month of January, right? Traffic safety, I'll have a meeting and then we'll try to get something back to council early February.
And then we'll talk about it in goals on the 11th.
When's your meeting in January?
3rd weekend in January.
When's your Thursday?
Or third.
You just meet once a month?
You meet all big stuff.
Yes. Awesome.
I have to head to my daughter's concert. Thank you.
Well, unless, yeah, that works. Unless there's anything else, I think we're done. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for supplying dinner.
Hey. Thanks for the.
Pretty good.
If you average it out of the hours that you work. I know.
Don't expect that on the committee.